Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TribalHub webinar, Tribal Tech Modernization, Real Stories, Real Impact. Today we are partnering with Nutanix. So excited to get this rolling here in a few minutes. But we're going to let everybody join before we get started. If you wouldn't mind, my favorite part of the webinar, using the chat and let us know where you're dialing in from. That would be fantastic. I am calling in today from our TribalHub Gaylord office in Gaylord, Michigan. And Tim is in DC area, MayE is in Northern California, and Charlie's also in the DC area. So kind of all over the place today, represented throughout the country. Let's see. Oh, Herb. Hi, Herb. North Dakota, California, Columbus, Ohio. Great. I just love seeing how all of these webinars like get everybody together across country. Hey, Kevin. Nice to see you on here. All right. So today, our webinar partners is Nutanix. Thank you guys very much for sponsoring this webinar. We are going to be chatting, having a little fireside chat with Tim Fisher, who is the Federal Systems Engineer with Nutanix. Charlie is also on the call today, and he is the works with tribes throughout the country. And then MayE, who is the IT Director from Yurok Tribe in Northern California. A couple of learning objectives to take away while you're listening to this fireside chat. Make sure that you guys use the chat box if you have any questions at all. This is the time to hammer MayE with those questions. He's one of you, and I love it when we have somebody on the call who is working with tribes in the field. Absolutely, get those questions answered. That's what we're here for today. So use the chat box. If you're not comfortable using that, you can use the Q&A feature, which will come right to me. So either one of those would be great. And a shameless plug for our Cybersecurity Summit, which is coming up the middle of February in Jacksonville, Florida. It's going to be a great event this year. We're super excited about it. It's expanded since last year. It's going to be a really great event. So check it out if you're interested in that. And on that note, I am going to hop off and I will turn things over to you, Tim, to start things off.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. Hey, everybody. I appreciate you guys joining us. We're excited to kind of do this fireside chat, me and MayE here, and talk through some stuff. Just to give you a quick little background on me, I'm one of the systems engineering managers here at Nutanix. My engineers cover civilian national security, healthcare, and tribes. So national security we call like Department of State and DHS and DOJ and those folks. And then the other half of my team covers a different part of the federal space, but all federal. My background, little background, 10 years was a contractor for the federal government, and then about 2014 got into sales as an SE, and I've worked for a variety of companies, NetApp, Palo Alto Networks, and Nutanix. Have been here for about a little over 6 years. So excited to do this. Excited to talk to you guys. Definitely do not hesitate with the questions. Shout them out. Charlie, Brian are going to be looking at that. They'll interrupt us to pop those questions in. So, May, you want to give our folks your background as well?
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to share. So I've been in the tribal space for a little over a decade now, up here on the North Coast. Previously, I was with Elk Valley. Now I'm with Yurok Tribe here, running the IT operations at both locations previously and now currently here with Yurok Tribe. And so, really, I'm kind of one of you. We wear many hats. I saw someone here posted from Lolita, California. We're essentially neighbors, and so that's super exciting. See someone else here from the North Coast, and yeah, really ready to get this going. And if there's any questions, feel free to put it on the chat.
Perfect. No, that's awesome. And let's jump right in. Let's level set, May, and let's talk a little bit more about Yurok Tribe in particular. Like what's your IT environment like? What are your mission responsibilities? I know I'm a federal guy. We talk mission a lot, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some other stuff I know we have in common. Talk to me about Yurok Tribe. Talk to me about your organization and all that kind of stuff a little bit more.
Yeah, so the Yurok Tribe, we're essentially the I believe we're the largest tribe in California as far as membership goes. We employ over 500 plus staff just on the government side. That is including our corporations. The IT department itself manages essentially all technology across the government division, and so. That's essentially general IT, your system engineering, help desk, essentially. And we are also running the security operations program as well as part of the IT department. And we also have the geospatial information within the IT department. And so we're expansive in the sense that we cover a lot, wear a lot of hats. And of course, the tribe has your basic service as a government, right? We have our public safety, judicial, emergency services, client service, all that great stuff that the tribe offers to its membership in the community.
No, that's awesome. I love I think we joked about this when we started talking. There's a lot of in my history, there's a lot of I've done this and also that. And when we were talking about Yurok Tribe, your job is a lot of well, I do this primarily, but also we do this and also we do this. And I love that. I love when folks, we as IT leaders tend to wear many different hats,
Yes,
and we got to carry them around with us pretty constantly usually.
yes, yes.
Awesome. So one of the things we at Nutanix really like to talk about, we get super nerdy. You know this as well as anybody. We love to get nerdy on our customers, what they're doing. So let's get a little nerdy right off the bat here and talk about workloads and applications. So obviously, you use Nutanix today, but let's talk about what do you use Nutanix for? What are some of the workloads and applications that you find that you use us with?
Yeah, so I mean, very similar. We use, right, it's a hypervisor, right? We have at the moment a little over 100 VMs across all of our nodes. They run that, your typical IIS, SQL, file share, general servers that we have. And so essentially that's what we're using our application for. We're also using it for DR replication and backup as well, right? And so it's kind of essentially general IT. But what we really like is just the scalability and really the disaster recovery is the big one for us.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I'm gonna have Michelle put up the first poll question here to the group. Let's talk a little bit. There we go. Oh, that's great. Um, let's kind of dovetail into those poll questions. Like what what was we're going to call it the dark ages, the pre-Nutanix environment. What was the dark ages like before Nutanix? What kind of environment did you have? And then kind of what were your challenges with that environment? And that kind of dovetails into probably why you ended up switching and going into Nutanix.
Yeah, yeah, we can definitely get into that. So I've been a Nutanix customer for about a decade now, 10 years now. When we first adopted, not here at Yurok Tribe, the folks here adopted it before I showed up. I've been with Yurok Tribe for about 2 years now. And so actually at my last employer, we transitioned over to Nutanix from VMware, actually. And really, at that point in time, we had a lot of bare metal servers mixed with our VMware system as well. And so we were looking at a solution that essentially could incorporate both, right? We wanted to bring our bare metal servers into into a hypervised environment, and really also move away from the three-tier environment that we had. Really, for the folks who are really out here in the Northwest or really in isolated locations, we know coming across skilled staff is difficult, right? Or retaining folks in these areas is a challenge. And so we needed something simple, reliable, efficient, train junior staff quickly into the environment. And so all of that really, Nutanix kind of hit the mark for us. And so we moved over, been with Nutanix since then.
No, it's a great point here, and I think it's something that we at Nutanix are hearing a lot from our customers, right? I mean, Broadcom's acquisition of VMware has caused kind of an earthquake into the IT landscape. I mean, in years past, I mean, I've been in the IT world for now, well, over 20 years now. I think combined, you and I probably don't want to talk about how much experience we have. It makes us sound older than I think we actually are. But we've got this in with the Broadcom VMware, the VMware acquisition by Broadcom. It's thrown a lot of upheaval into this, and I think it's causing a lot of people to say, well, wait a minute, if we were sitting down and developing an IT environment for our joint customer, in years past, the first thing we'd write on the whiteboard, and you can't see it because I have a background, but there's a whiteboard right behind me here at the Nutanix office. The first thing we'd write down on the whiteboard is we're going to use VMware, we're going to use ESXi as the hypervisor. That we would put that into permanent marker on the whiteboard and say, okay, we know that. We don't know what storage we're going to use. We don't know what server vendors we're going to use, but we do know that we're going to use, VMware. And that was just the default standard for many, many years. And I think, slowly but surely, different competitors have come into that hypervisor market. Clearly, I would say I am pretty biased on this one, but I would say Nutanix is the number one competitor to VMware and their hypervisor ESXi. But we've seen a lot of that over the last few years of, okay, we've got to get away from Broadcom for a wide variety, and we're going to kind of get into this here. One thing you mentioned though, which I kind of chuckle at, is this hypervisors have been this ubiquitous thing for years and years and years. But one of the reasons you went to Nutanix was to move from bare metal into a hypervisor, into a virtual space. And I think we talked about this. I had the exact same thing happen to a customer just last year. They had 100 physical servers, and they had never used virtualization, and so we helped them get into virtualization with a small little Nutanix box that they were running. And this is still prevalent in a lot of IT industry, or a lot of IT organizations. Is there's still those bare metal boxes that people have. How was your experience getting it from bare metal to AHV as a hypervisor?
Yeah, to be completely honest, Nutanix has tools, and it was very easy. We were able to migrate all of them across, really no hiccups at all. We sized our clusters to be the right size, so moving them into the hypervisor, virtualizing these bare metal systems really was not an issue. Ultimately, it was essentially just set the time, the date, create the backups, the snapshots, and then we moved them, right? Put the maintenance window in, and really, I know this is a Nutanix discussion, but we were very, very happy with the move. Really, no issues at all. And like you mentioned, even here, when I started here 2 years ago, we had bare metal systems here still, and so we had just within the last month moved our TANF server really off a bare metal server sitting in our server room over to Nutanix. Of course, I wanted to do this sooner. Obviously, there's constraints we all have, and so we were able to get that over. And a lot of that, and I'm sure a lot of the folks on here also really understand, is those constraints, right? We love to just, hey, let's do this, make this happen. But because we have these programs, and they're whether they're, whatever the strings are, complications are, sometimes we need to put that plan in place. And honestly, a lot of it had to do with just engaging with the directors, executive, and really just putting that plan together. And here we are, 2 years later, we finally got this server virtualized.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean, I think if you sit down and map it out, before I walked into that customer space, I would have bet, probably a lot of Charlie's money that they were virtualized already, and that this was going to be an easy, like, they're on VMware, that's fine. We can get them over to Nutanix, that's easy. And when we walked into the customer, it was like, wait, did you say physical? And to your point, a lot of times it's budget related, and they told us flat out, yeah, we needed to buy 25 or 30 HPE servers, and HPE gave us a really great deal, and so we bought 75 HPE servers instead, and just standardized on physical, and and away we went. And that's just sort of kind of how it happens. So
Yeah.
it's a great reminder, I think, to us as IT leaders that, it's not everybody is still different and everybody's still navigating these these IT challenges. And some of us are on, the far, right-hand side of this journey where, we may be doing cloud and a hybrid cloud, and we may be doing all kinds of stuff, and we've got everything automated, and, admins can kind of sit back and sip their coffee, and everything's great. And then there's other folks that are still on the far left-hand side of this journey where we still got to get physical boxes virtualized into a platform, and then we can make these incremental step-by-step challenges. So let's talk a little bit more about one of those challenges for you guys. Backups. I think we joked in one of our sessions that backups are kind of like the system that sits over here on the right hand side that nobody really talks about, right up until the point where something goes wrong in the production system, and then we need backups immediately, and then it's kind of like this forgotten IT system. So let's talk a little bit about how, Nutanix helped you guys with backups and DR. Like what are you guys looking at as far as backups and DR goes?
Yeah, so Nutanix has an amazing DR system built in. Um, we have multiple sites. The tribe is expansive, and so we have multiple sites that we do have our clusters at, and we create DR. Basically, essentially, what Nutanix does is it creates snapshots, and then it sends that over to a different cluster, essentially at a remote site, right? And that's how we have most of our backups set up, at least the main backups. We also have additional backups of the backups, right? And this is what we do. But essentially, we rely heavily on the DR system, basically because one, recovery is so quick, right? And I think I was telling Tim this and the other folks is we actually had a node fail on us a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me. and we had a debate, right? Like, do we? I spoke to the engineer. I'm like, do we buy the equipment to replace this? How much was the downtime? We look at the recovery time. We're like, or do we lose the 1 2 hour maybe production that we had and just, hey, it was. And funny enough, it was actually our GIS program server or was hosting one of our VMs on that cluster, and so it's always a little easier if it's internal. And so the folks, I was like, hey, I was talking to the GIT manager, and I'm like, what is the production loss in those 2 hours? Was there really any, or how do we just you want to wait and let's bring this back up, or do we want to quickly recover this and just move on, and then we deal with this hardware failure on the back end? There's no lingering effect, right? And she's like, yeah, productivity is fine. Let's just do it. And essentially, we brought this server back up on a remote snapshot. It took us 30 minutes or less to bring essentially over, really rebuild two main VMs for our geospatial team, a little over 10 terabytes. 30 minutes they were up operational. The whole enterprise, the whole government was able to use our S3 services again later in 30 minutes. And this was a whole, essentially a system failure in this point, right? And in 30 minutes we're up operational. Essentially, almost no one knew there's a big hiccup that happened, and it was amazing. It was great. We also do use Veeam, but we didn't need to go that far, right? Snapshot was able to take care of that. DR was able to take care of that, and honestly, it was much quicker, in my opinion.
No, that's great. I mean, we know that hardware will fail. That's the one
Right.
guarantee we have
Yep.
on hardware, is that at some point, probably in the least time we want it, at least been easy time we need it to, it'll fail. And so, I love that. I love that story of, hey, we were able to get back online really, really quickly and move forward, and we can troubleshoot the hardware problem later, but we got to get this back online and get it going. And I know you do a lot of on-prem stuff, and so I'll throw a cloud question at you, and we'll talk a little bit about this. Like, any movement towards clouds, any movement towards DR in the cloud, or workloads in the cloud, or how do you guys in the Yurok Tribe see sort of a hybrid cloud environment, or are you going to be on-prem only, or what are you guys seeing in that kind of space?
So that's always a challenging question, right? For us in the tribal space, we talk a lot about data sovereignty and who has access to our data, the tribal data, what we consider really truly confidential. Nothing ever leaves the the tribal space. And so it is discussion we're having just because we all also know that as IT folks that a lot of things are moving to the cloud, right? It's some are only available on the cloud at this point, whether it's SaaS or not, that's on the cloud. Not a lot of folks think that way, but it is. And so we are, but I'll be honest, we are still hesitant. It is hard. The tribe here, and honestly the previous tribe I worked at, we do believe that having our hands over our data, essentially physically, is one of our responsibilities, right? And I know a lot of tribes we talk. I'll just the most sensitive is really just the block quantums and things like that is something that we never want out there in the world ever, right? That's something that is held at the tribal office, lock and key kind of deal. And so the idea of going full cloud or even hybrid cloud, we have to look at what data we're going to be storing essentially up wherever this data center may be. And so that's still a challenge for us. But I honestly will probably move some stuff to the cloud just because um, we have a lot of remote workers at this point, right? And that's the new age for every environment, not just tribal. And so having everything on prem has somewhat of a disadvantage for our remote folks and really our remote sites.
No, I think so. You use a term that we hear a lot in the federal space, obviously, which is data sovereignty, and even in especially like the EMEA European theater, there's laws around data sovereignty that that data can't get outside of the country borders and things like that. And I think having the ability, I think is one of the things Nutanix tries to do best is giving our customers optionality, giving you choices. Hey, you can do this very easily with two clusters sitting on tribal land. Everything stays there. You're good to go. And it's an easy button for backups. And then if you need an additional level of backups, you can use some of our backup partners like a Veeam to kind of give you the journaling capabilities and some of the stuff that true backup vendors do really, really well. And then for other folks, it can be, all right, well, there's there's not a lot of stuff that's relatively cheap inside the cloud. Storage tends to be one of them, especially if you can get it into an object and into an S3 storage bucket or something like that. That tends to be relatively cheap. And so, Nutanix tries to provide options there where it's, hey, we can dump data into an S3 bucket somewhere inside, Amazon US West 1 or inside Azure Blob or wherever. So we really want to try and give that to folks so that they can sit down and say, okay, what do we need? This data is super sensitive. For you guys, it's that data. For some of my customers, it may be, intelligence data that we've gathered in a foreign country that we need to keep separate from everything else. Like this wide variety of data sovereignty and how helps guide our decisions on that. And so I like that you guys are looking at that and looking at your different options and saying, how can we do this? And how can we do cloud? How can we do cloud smart? And then how can we do cloud securely? We need to make sure that this data is secure. And maybe that is, inside Amazon Gov Cloud or Azure Gov or some place where we know it's relatively more secure than a commercial region. So that's great. I love that. So let's talk about sort of future, a little future tech, because I think that I would get shocked by Nutanix if I didn't mention Kubernetes and AI. That's kind of the topic du jour amongst the IT professionals. So, you guys have a big VMware a big VM environment, I should say. What about these next stages of infrastructure, the Kubernetes platforms and into kind of maybe potentially some AI? Do you see use cases for that stuff within Yurok Tribe at all?
We do. The team we've been discussing it. We're not quite to be 100%. We're not quite sure if we're there yet. Where we're not the most cutting edge when it comes down to and so we are discussing it for our use case. Would we? And I just had a great conversation with my engineer and the security team of folks, right? Because they're very also interested in the containers because it's more secure and all that good stuff. And so we've been talking about for the last couple of months, really, what our use case would be, how would it affect our environment, really how much resource would it save us? Because right, we have 100 plus VMs, throwing containers, we're essentially going to reduce just the resource load in general is going to go down, right? And so we are looking at it, and that may be the future for us. We do expect a good growth within the government the next couple of years or so, and so we are actively looking at that. I believe the team even has started looking at potentially taking on on a trial basis with the Kubernetes and whatnot. And so, yeah, I think, I mean, we were talking about it, and we like it, but is it, we're still going to see if it's going to work for us or not. Because we do have a lot of applications that are across the enterprise, a lot of the government that we know would work amazing in containers, and they would just be a great asset for essentially all of our users.
No, it's great. And I think the last point you made is the key point that I think we're having these conversations as IT leaders, and I know Nutanix is having these conversations with our customers is, okay, we know that we should be looking at containers, for example. But how? How do we do containers? What containerized platform do we use? And more importantly, it gives us the advantage of kind of looking at our applications and going, all right, what applications are primed for to be kind of rewritten and containerized? And what applications have been around since maybe before Charlie was even born and therefore cannot be containerized at all 100%? And we're just going to keep those on VMs, and we're not going to worry about it. So have you guys kind of even started looking at
What,
that to say what do we even have here?
So we have just started looking at that. The last couple of weeks was what can be containerized, what
Yeah.
is going to stay on, as a VM, and I honestly, to be truthful, in the end, that's going to determine if we move over, use Kubernetes or not. Is what is the benefit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the key right there is and again, Nutanix's approach to this is a platform approach. Again, choice. Like I don't want to harp too much on the choice thing, but it really is something we believe in. And so, it comes down to we believe that there's going to be some applications that are absolutely prime candidates. You containerize them, save resources, save on expansion. If you can bring down your resource load now, maybe you don't have to buy the next node right now. Maybe it's pushing that down the road 6 more months potentially, because you're just saving resources within your current environment. But because there's applications that we won't be able to move, we absolutely have to have a platform that can do both at the exact same time and be administered by the same folks that are administering VMs, because that becomes a completely different ball game. And it's the number one thing we talk to potential customers about is, where are you on this Kubernetes? Used to be we would talk about, where are you on the cloud journey? Now we're talking about, where are you on this Kubernetes journey? And do you have the talent in place to be able to go out and do containers? Or, and this is something that I think Nutanix and I think you and I talked about as well, is the infrastructure. If you're running Nutanix, we want that infrastructure to be easy to run. We want your admins to have time. I think I told you, I was a self-described lazy admin in my admin days. I wanted to automate everything. I wanted my NetApp arrays to send me reports daily about disks failures and all that stuff, so that I didn't even have to walk down to the data center and look at my NetApp arrays and look at the lights. I just wanted them to send me data that says, hey, yeah, I'm bad. And so, because I wanted to automate those sort of more mundane IT tasks, so that I could then focus on what's next. And has Nutanix ever, have we been able to do that with some of your admins, where they're able to say, okay, hey, infrastructure is running. We know it's running. It's easy to run. Now I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to start learning this new paradigm that might be a paradigm shift for me in containers or AI or whatever that is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing now. Right now is, we're our security team and our engineer. I don't want to say team because both of them was one individual, one SOC and one engineer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Just
small
small
team.
team.
Hey,
Team, but small
small
team.
team,
Yeah.
but at least I have an engineer
Yeah.
and a security person before we can.
Absolutely.
So we're building capacity. And so we are definitely looking at that, and I know, and that's a great topic, Tim. Really is that if we have resilient and really confidence in our infrastructure, our ability to run it, having the correct notifications, the ease of use, it allows the team, myself and everyone in the IT department really to engage in other areas, projects that may need some attention, right? And that's maybe future growth, future change projects, here in this case Kubernetes moving into the future. And really that's kind of something that Nutanix has brought to us, is really that confidence that our system is going to be there, right? It's going to work. We're going to have right notifications. I could be on vacation. I could have a junior technician on. My engineer could be on vacation. If we both be on vacation at the same time, and if something were to happen, we can quick phone call, quick tap in. If I'm in remote areas, which I usually am, I live up here for a reason, so I
Yeah. I
travel.
was gonna say you live in a remote
Internet
region
service, cell
already.
service
This
is
is
pretty
yeah.
light, and
Yeah.
so if I can just ping, have a few conversation, text, something, I can walk a junior engineer, a junior staff through how to troubleshoot, how to replace, what is the issue, all the big red lights, um, that has been a huge benefit.
That's great. And so, all right, so we talked a lot about containers. That's good. I probably won't get fired because we'll talk about containers. But let's talk a little bit about AI too. Like, it's a conversation we're having with a lot of customers and a lot of people. The number one answer, and I think we joked about this because I think I stole your answer from you. The number one answer from almost all of our customers has been, we know we got to do something in AI. We're not sure what, we're not sure how. And then to a lot of federal customers and tribes as well, the next thing out of their mouth is, we gotta think security. We absolutely have to think security, whether it's again back to data sovereignty, or whether it's to admins accessing certain models that they shouldn't have. What are you guys thinking along the lines of an AI strategy?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, the security is always first, right? For anything new that we're going to bring to the environment. Obviously, like most places currently, we're looking at essentially bringing on agentic AI more than anything else, right? To help really with the workflow of our own staff, ourselves, really. And so that's what we're looking at. As far as Nutanix, I'm actually kind of, I think we talked about this, Tim, a little bit, is I'm still a little waiting for what Nutanix, I want to hear what's coming out from Nutanix on the AI portion of it. I know there's some AI built into Kubernetes, but we're not using that yet, so I'm not super familiar with that. But really, honestly, for us, really is security. That is going to be the AI goal for us. If we bring anything in, it has to be vetted, it has to be secure.
I think that's the Nutanix strategy right there on AI. I mean, I don't think, we're not going to be the ones that introduce a new model. Google is updating Gemini. I think they just released Gemini 3. ChatGPT gets updated faster than I can keep up with it, and there's more models coming out day after day after day. So Nutanix isn't in the model building business at all. We don't want to be in that model building business. We want to be in the inferencing business, and we want to kind of talk to people about inferencing a lot. But our number one thing to people is management. I mean, it seems kind of weird to say, but it's what our talk track is on normal IT infrastructure, is how do we easily let you manage IT infrastructure? You're not going to have to go to 6 different systems, to kind of get a sense of what your infrastructure is. Go to one instance, one, Prism for us and all that. AI is the same thing. We've got organizations that are deploying one model, and they're focusing, and they're taking that model, and they're putting it on prem for a wide variety of data and security reasons. And then they also need to protect who's accessing that model, and therefore the data in that model. And then there's other organizations that are deploying all different kinds of models, and moving forward. And so we've seen instances of people, using Nutanix, and just dropping models into an environment. And I think Jason Langone is our like worldwide head of AI. And he was just telling one of my customers a story the other day of, a customer he was talking to they dumped DeepSeek. DeepSeek came out. They dumped DeepSeek right into their environment. They're like, this is great. It's a fantastic model. It's better than ChatGPT. And they read all this stuff and they dumped it right in the environment. And then like literally 3 days later, the U.S. government went, hey, by the way, DeepSeek, that's like a Chinese-based model. We cannot have that anywhere near our data. And then all of a sudden it's, all right, well, who accessed the model? What did the model access? And now we've got a lot of concerns jumping around. And so for us at Nutanix, it's all about who's accessing the models, which access do they have? I can say I want MayE and his team to have access to these 3 models, but I want Charlie and Brian to only have access to these 2 models. That's all they need. They don't need access to these other ones. And how do we put some rules around that and make sure people are accessing what they're supposed to be accessing and not anything more. So I think security is sort of fundamental to us and what we do. It's why we do Stig out of the box, and I think AI is no difference for that. All right, let's talk a little bit more Broadcom here. And I know we've got maybe about 10 more minutes, and then I know we want to open it up for some questions as well. Although actually, let's take a quick. Michelle posted a question: is how many people are in your IT team, MayE, overall?
Yes. So there is 17 of us, but that includes our geospatial, our SOC, and then our general IT. And so there's 17 total. But just on the technical general IT side, there is 9 of us.
Awesome. Now, see, that's not even a small staff. That's a big staff. Um,
Hey,
so,
that's what everyone tells me. They're like, you got 17 staff. I'm like, but we got our they do. That's a different thing. Like
yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah. No. I need budgets for both sides of the house. I keep trying that too.
yeah.
So let's talk about Broadcom. I know we briefly mentioned it at the beginning. Like, this continues to be a hot topic of conversation, for a wide variety of reasons. Number one is probably price on ESXi. Broadcom sort of made their plans pretty clear to a lot of organizations on what they're going to do with the price and how much it's going to go up year after year after year. For some people, it could be a security related, type concern with Broadcom overall as a company. We've heard that a little bit, but if there's other tribal organizations on this webinar or who watch this webinar afterwards and missed the live version, what's your advice to folks that are facing this Broadcom issue, problem, concern? What do you tell them for that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start this though. I've been a Nutanix customer for a long time, before the Broadcom acquisition, and so I'm not, in the weeds of exactly what's going on in the sense that it's not affecting us in a sense. We're not a VMware Broadcom customer currently. But I would say, essentially, back to 10 years ago when we moved away from VMware, it's the same idea, right? I mean, if we're looking at a product, and this is not because I'm on this Nutanix panel, but if we're looking at a product and it's simpler, it's effective, it does exactly what we need. Um, I know the transition's hard, right? A lot of us we have to go through our executive team, ED, COO, CEO, whoever that is leadership, and essentially, of course, every tribe is a little different, but the tribes I worked for at a certain X amount of dollar, that's in front of council, right? We have to get that approved. We have to explain why this is the expenditure, why is this changing, and so a lot of that comes down to can we explain and what is the benefit, and really, what are the future goals, and can we plan this out, right? We need to lay that out for our leadership and for myself, when I brought this to my own council to get this approved, it really was the fact that we were confident in Nutanix's reliability. It was also cheaper than VMware, so that always helps. And really, I'll say this, and this is something that I've been really, really happy with, and especially 10 years. I've been working with Nutanix now is the support from the Nutanix folks. It honestly has been amazing. We reach out, we have support consistently 24 hours. The response time has been great. The ability to resolve our issues has been amazing. and as a lot of these folks here know, with a small team, my previous life, I was the IT director for also their casino, all the businesses and whatnot. So we ran 24 hours, and so having someone on the phone when you need them, we didn't have a dedicated engineer in my last position, and so really that was a huge benefit. Just having that ability to connect with a human quickly to get any issues resolved was great. And so that's something I just want to throw out there.
I love hearing that. I love our support organization. They're fantastic. It is truly, I think, one of the things that sets us apart from some of our competition. When you call, you get an engineer. It's not a tier one admin. It's a tier three engineer, and their escalation is not to another tier. It's directly to our engineering support. So we get pretty quick access into things. So it helps us resolve what a lot of times can be very complex problems. We have the thing we see as admins is that a disk or a node is offline, but it turns out there's a different problem. It's not a physical problem. It's something else. And so getting in and really digging in with support and figuring out what that problem is and ensuring it doesn't happen again, I think is crucial. And so I love hearing all the good stuff about our support. I can't say enough about them. They make my job easier. I know they make Brian's job easier. So that certainly helps. I think on the Broadcom, VMware to Nutanix front, the biggest, I think the biggest impediment I see for most organizations is just the migration and the perceived, I'll call it perceived risk. I mean, I know there's some actual risk in there from going to from one product to another product. It doesn't matter if it's as crucial to your environment as a hypervisor is, or if it's just as a former storage guy, I can't believe I just said just a storage array. I'm sure I'll be hit sometime later for that. But or if it's moving from one storage array to another, where that data migration might be super easy. That migration risk kind of takes hold inside the environment and inside an IT shop. So, let's talk for last few more minutes before I ask my last and final question. Like, what was that migration like? Like it's like I said, the hypervisor is sort of the linchpin of all of an IT shop. So you're switching hypervisors from ESXi to AHV and on the Nutanix side. What's that migration look like?
Yeah, so when we did it, we essentially stood up, side by side, right? Everyone's scenarios can be a little different, but we purchased all new equipment. We brought up Nutanix HV, and so really we just used Nutanix Move, and we just migrated our VMs directly across from our vCenter, right? It was again, I know I keep saying this, but it was actually very seamless for us. Really was just maintenance downtime, really just scheduling that and getting operational on the other side. And ultimately, the way we did it is our VM infrastructure was still there. To be honest, like if we ran into true issues, um, ultimately. VMware was still there. We could still bring it back up if we needed to, if it came to that. And so we had a lot of confidence just because we had the resiliency. Again, I'm sure that not everyone's going to have that ability, but just the migration itself was very simple. Plan it out, downtime maintenance, put your testing in, and really, again, Nutanix Move did wonders for us.
Awesome. No, that's really glad to hear. I think it's an amazing tool we've got, Nutanix Move, just a VM you deploy into the environment for those not familiar. And it's free. We just give it away. We just give it away on our website. It's probably one of the most crucial features we have in all of Nutanix, and we just kind of give it away on our website. It's kind of wild, but it does make migrations a lot easier. And I think from Nutanix's perspective, you guys did it the way that 90% of our customers have done it over the years, which is, okay, we've got this ESXi environment. We've got it on a traditional sort of 3-tier with a big storage array behind it. Maybe with Fiber Channel, maybe not with Fiber Channel, who knows? And then, okay, we're going to move to an HCI hyper-converged platform, and then we're going to do this migration. I think one of the things Nutanix has realized over the last couple of years, especially as with the Broadcom takeover of VMware, is HCI isn't the answer all the time. I think it's a great solution, and for a lot of folks, it should be the default solution. But a lot of the infrastructure is still based on that three tier. And so I think for us, we've started adding support for storage arrays. We've now added PowerFlex support, and we announced in May at our .next conference Pure support. I'm sure there's other storage vendors coming down the pike that I'm not allowed to talk about right now, but like we recognize that there is this still folks that hold on to this more three-tiered infrastructure, and we want to help them migrate off of ESXi. So I think that's great. I appreciate that. So last question, and then we'll try and get to some Q&A here in the last 15-ish minutes. Let's look out into the future, which is impossible to predict. I can't even predict what I'm going to do tomorrow, but I'm going to ask you to predict 2 to 3 years down the road, maybe. Like, what do you see coming for, your organization, maybe Tribal as a whole? Like, what do you see a couple years, 2 years down the road? Like, do you see anything out there that you've already got your eyes on going, oh, that's going to be a disruptor, or we should keep an eye on that, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I know we mentioned Kubernetes already. That's kind of our big one. Is we know that we're gonna grow. Like we know this. We know that we're potentially gonna bring on more applications, more servers as the tribe grows, and essentially our programs get bigger and get more efficient. And so we also need to get more efficient, right? And again, for us, one was Kubernetes, really just throwing those in containers and see how that works for us. Realistically, I know we talked a little bit about DR, but for us, again, right, recovery backup is always a big thing. We have also looked at. I know I mentioned data sovereignty, and once we are able to build and identify what is confidential that the tribe does not ever want to leave the tribal reservation, we may also look at potentially moving some of our backups to the cloud. Um, um, but of course, that's in the future, right? And with the cost. I think the other one we're really just looking at is really honestly where Nutanix is going. I know I was at .next and there was the mention of the added storage array and whatnot, and so that's been an interesting topic here as well. Again, being a Nutanix customer for so many years, because we're on fully hyper converged, right, and multiple nodes.
It's I'll be honest, it's a weird conversation for some of us to be having. Even sitting here as Nutanix, it's a different conversation that we're starting to have. Is we used to be so for a pun totally intended, hyper focused on hyper converge. Like that's how we were. It is an interesting time here at Nutanix to be talking about storage services and storage vendors and all that kind of stuff. And so it's been pretty fun. I mean, at .next, we had Pure there. They had a gigantic booth. I walked over there to kind of see what they were talking about. One of our former SEs is now one of the federal Pure SEs. He's giving this big talk about Pure on Pure with Nutanix and all that kind of stuff. And it's just interesting. I jumped in as I could to kind of provide some insight, but it's an interesting time. So MayE, I appreciate that. Let's see. Michelle, do we have any questions on like the Q&A side of the house, or does anybody want to jump on and ask us a question? I know we've still got some time.
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left. I didn't see any coming through on the Q&A, but I'm totally open to answering some questions or to, pushing some of those through if you guys want to use that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's get
it
some
was
questions.
really great to like hear your story though, MayE. It's always cool to see from a tribal perspective what people are using, how they're using it, and like a real story of you and the switch. And I think one of the things that was interesting was just listening to the story of like making that transfer, or making like the switch, and listening to maybe how you talked to your council about it, because that had to have been a really, you know, not, I wouldn't say tough, conversation, but it's not an overnight decision. You know what I mean? So how long were you, kind of thinking about this and, maybe planning to talk to the council about it before you actually got to the point where you're like, all right, we need to like make a decision now? How long was that time
Right.
frame?
So I mean, it was a good process, right? We had to go through obviously multiple vendors. We looked at Nutanix was one of them. Obviously, VMware was one as well. And
Mm,
once we went through that, and really a lot of decision money's always a topic, that we have to go through. Really, staffing was the other one for us because my last when we transitioned my last employment, we only had, including myself, four staff to run 24 hours, and so
right.
it was a light crew. And so that was one of our big points was, our ability to maintain effectively our infrastructure with the limited staff that we had. And so that was one of the key points we brought up was the ability to bring on junior staff that we can quickly onboard and really
Mm,
be essentially efficient at using the Nutanix product within a very, very short time, not having to learn our Dell SAM system, how
right.
multiple software, essentially one pane of glass kind of deal. And it was just we were able to justify the cost and then move just basically on cost and really the staffing to do it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a great point because I think one of the things we like to talk about here at Nutanix is, I was a like as I mentioned, I was a storage guy for 10 years. That was my entire world was storage. I didn't really know anything about the virtualization world. We had an entire team that did the virtualization piece. At the agency I worked at, there was six of us running nearly 80 petabytes worth of storage. We were a thin team. We had a ton of storage.
Mm,
And we may or may not have used some of those geospatial products that you guys are pushing out. So, I think we were sort of pigeonholed, but I was an expert. I was a storage expert, and I think one of the things Nutanix likes to talk to people about is you don't need experts in one specific thing to run an infrastructure. You need sort of a technology generalist that maybe knows a little bit about networking and a little bit about storage and a little bit about
mhm.
virtualization, and they can run an entire infrastructure pretty seamlessly, just with that, and then that can free up the higher level admins to go after bigger projects or something like that and not have to worry about managing the day-to-day operations.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Tim makes a great point because that's a lot of challenge we don't need to. Our team is many hats, right? We don't get to
Mhm.
be a storage expert and we're working on our storage. We don't get to be the DBA and that's all we do all day, right?
Yeah.
That's just not something that's usually available to us.
Mhm. And I think that's common with so many tribes too. You obviously you have some tribes like you were saying before, you had four people. That's common. You know what I mean with tribes because they vary so much in size. So I love that you're able to kind of use that and share that with people on the call because it's a very common situation that a lot of people that we work with find themselves in. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was great. Well, you guys, I think this was such a cool conversation. Did you guys have anything to wrap up with before we leave the call?
I'll let you start.
I would just say, I mean, if you're on the edge about going over or not, I'll just say this, I've been really happy with the product. This is not a plugin just for Nutanix, but really I've been happy with the product. I'll genuinely say that it's been great for us.
Oh, yeah, I got a question that came in.
Oh,
Yeah.
How
perfect.
has your experience been with database heavy applications like CMMS or ERP on the Nutanix platform? Good
Yeah,
question.
Mark. Yeah, great question. So there's a lot we can get super technical, and would love to talk more about it. But the simple fact is, the answer is, our experience is really, really good. I mean, our platform is sort of built for that. We started in being known as kind of a VDI company. We did VDI really, really, really well. And but the platform can run anything, and due to some decisions that we made, we, not me, the founders of the company made early on, and on the way we write data and all kinds of different stuff, we're like primed for a lot of database heavy applications where you've got a local copy of the data. We write super fast down to that local copy of the data for the database. A lot of different kind of replication strategies. So we are great for that type of workload, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Do you have some thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've had no issues, to be honest. That's been great. Non-issue at all. That's all I can say about it, really, because we haven't had an issue.
Um, I know, Michelle, I think we've got one more poll question.
Oh,
I think
oh
we
yeah.
want to want to throw up there. We definitely, I appreciate your time and your energy and all this. I've loved our conversations, prepping for this. And so, like I told you, if you need anything, if Charlie and Brian are out of line at any point, you have a direct line to me. I can take care of that. But thank you very much for your time, and for everybody on the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward, feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I pretty much say yes to everybody. And so, feel free to reach out and say, hey, I had this question. I didn't want to ask it. I'm one of those people. I have tons of questions. I tend to not want to ask them in a public forum. So feel free to reach out directly to me. I can get you to where you need to go. And then I think we're going to follow this webinar up with an email with some resources and assets to get you guys more on Nutanix, to help you with any questions you have. But again, Michelle, thank you guys. TribalHub, thank you guys. Appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun. Again, MayE, thank you so much. And I'll throw it back to you, Michelle, for close.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys. Like I said before, great to have this conversation. Also, if anybody on the call, we can always put you in touch also with Tim and Charlie, Sheila, and the team at any time. Just let us know. You can reach out to us anytime at contact us at tribalhub.com. So again, thank you everybody for being on. Nutanix team and MayE, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. Look for an email tomorrow from Zoom with a copy of this recording that you can share with anybody on your team who maybe couldn't make it. And at that, I hope you guys have a great afternoon. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.